Open your ears and crack some beers. You are listening to episode 43 of Retro Hangover.
Hello, Internet. We are coming to you over the streaming service of your choice, where we are adequately applying Amanda against all adjacent appendages, and also anally. Welcome to episode 43 of Retro Hangover Podcast. I am your co-host, Chris Copleen, and as always, I am with your host, Shane Dick Dragon Sickle Slingin' Koski. How are you doing today, Shane?
I'm doing all right. I think also we should just keep the whole apply Amanda thing as a 100% in joke so that we just confuse the shit out of everybody.
We do have to talk about what applying Amanda means because that a lot of people might be lost.
Yeah, but that's the point.
I guess that is the point.
Directly to the forehead. Anyway, so Chris, how have you been since the last time we chit-chatted?
I don't even what? Things.
What? Great.
Yeah. What have I done?
I don't know. What have you done?
We had a couple
what
beers
have you done?
At a new place that I like. I like the new place that we went to have beers.
Yes. Yeah, the new old place, yes.
The new old place under new management. I didn't have all the food, but you had the good food, I think. Did you have the good food?
As far as like your standard sort of like pub bar fare goes, yeah, it wasn't too bad. I had a PBJ burger with bacon, so you can't really go wrong with that. So
and you use strawberry jelly.
Yeah, because it's superior to grape jelly. Fight me.
Yeah, you're wrong. But you're entitled to your wrong opinion. You can be that's okay.
You're damn right. And I will be. And it was also accompanied by some pretty good sweet potato fries, by the way. So
those are good.
Yeah, well they were, but there's a reason for that because not everybody does sweet potato fries correctly, right? But they did. So the key to like solid sweet potato fries is also including a nice little shimmy sham of some brown sugar and like some cinnamon up on there. And that's what they had. They had a nice little layer of that across those things, and it was good.
Well, I'm glad that was good. I had fried pickles, and they were okay. They're pretty good. And beer, but they don't make their own beer. I mean, that's pretty par for the course, I guess. Mm-hmm. It's hard to fuck up beer, especially when you don't make it.
That is true, yeah. And they were still in the process of doing some construction on the restaurant in the middle of the day, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but there you have it. I don't know. I guess it adds the atmosphere or something.
That has to be probably the best feature of our dining experience is the fact that they were replacing a ceiling tile while we were eating.
And I was like, yeah, well, so I get a PBJ burger with a side of fries and a free upgrade of possible asbestos. So there you go.
Yeah, at least you don't have to worry about diabetes. Well, maybe you do. I'm not sure.
I had a peanut butter jelly burger with sugared up fries. Of course I have to worry about diabetes.
With asbestos. Other than that, it's been completely kind of easy treading, I guess. Just kind of boring living. Haven't traveled anywhere this time. I mean, that's going to change here soon. I'm going to be going all over the Southeast United States.
Yeah.
Coming up here. And I'm going to be working my ass off, or at least busy. I won't say working my ass off. I mean, that would be a lie. But I will be, I guess, indisposed doing work things because I can't get too much into it for reasons, I guess.
Yeah, we don't have proper clearance for that.
No. Well, I mean, I really don't have clearance to talk to you about that either, unfortunately. I wish I could, because it'd be fun. But I can't. It's a Navy thing, sort of. But other than that, Shane,
Yes.
what have you been playing? Because last time we talked, I kind of shit all over your gaming experience.
Yeah, I guess I actually need to like go back a few weeks to talk about what I've been gaming because I did not get a chance last time.
Well, you talked about Blazing Chromer.
Yes, I did talk about Blazing Chrome. That I will recommend that again because it's a solid Contra game that's not actually Contra. So I don't trust Konami or anybody involved with actual Contra to do it justice anymore, especially with the way that new one looks like it's gonna turn out. So this is the closest thing you're gonna get. But outside of that, just like some random shit. Like I've been kind of scrolling through my vast collection of 100% legally obtained ROM files. And I kind of just started playing Gradius 3 out of nowhere because I figured why not? And if you would like to hear more about that, then we actually have our very first patron exclusive rapid fire review up on our patron feed. So if you're interested in checking that out and hearing what I had to say about it, then please feel free to head that way. Yeah, I don't know, man. I truth be told, I actually haven't been playing a whole lot lately. Part of it was also because we were sort of pseudo without power at the house for the past like couple days due to some electrical work that we needed to have done. And also, as a fun side effect of the said electrical work, we managed to completely fry our friggin' modem. So that's cool. So I was also without Wi-Fi for about 3 days.
You needed a new one anyway.
I mean, I kind of did, actually. I know you're joking, but I've had that one for like several years now. And so when they sent us a new replacement, it was like a completely new model. It wasn't even the same thing. So I'm hoping maybe I get some better performance out of this one. But yeah, man, not actually a whole lot. So I'm hoping to rectify that soon, but I think with our schedules the way they are, I'm not sure how much time I'm going to have to fit stuff in.
That sounds like a very good game, the Electrical Quest.
Yes.
That must mean plenty of time for mobile games, right?
Well, I always make time for that. Yeah, I'm a filthy mobile gamer, so I've still got the Kingdom Hearts Union Cross and Final Fantasy Opera Omnia that I play religiously every day. Damn, by the way, like I know we're not getting paid for this or anything, but I'm gonna shill for Opera Omnia because if there's ever like a mobile game that is actually like surprisingly fair with their microtransactions and provides a shitload of like actually good content, it's that game. Like that's actually the biggest reason I've been playing it. Well, so Record Keeper, yes. I would recommend that one as well. I don't personally play it anymore. It kind of lost my interest after a while, but to be fair, it was a mobile game that I did play almost daily for at least a couple of years. So that says something kind of in and of itself. But
I mean, I don't play it anymore either, but I still love it.
Yeah. And just because, and it's kind of sad because there are so few mobile games in the market these days that are worth your time and are not just thinly veiled slot machines. But Opera Omnia definitely does a lot of things right. And so I would heavily recommend that to anybody that is either a fan of Final Fantasy or just, like party-based RPG style games in general.
So when you say you've been playing Grandia 3 and
by that you mean Gradius 3.
Yeah, Gradius. Because there is a Grandia 3. It's just not Gradius 3.
Mm-hmm.
Without getting into too much detail, because I don't want you to give me a full review, because that would be available to our 16-bit subscribers on Patreon exclusively.
Yes.
Yes. Which you could find at bit.ly/rhpatron. In any case... Totally not shilling ourselves.
Yeah,
right
not
now.
Shameless plug or anything, but
no
go
shameless
on.
Plug. Did you play it on original hardware or did you emulate it?
Oh, no, I 100% emulated it. And even with the emulation, I didn't know this, but Chris brought it up like right before we started recording that apparently that game is known for massive slowdown. And let me tell you, it's 100% there.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get into, is that they have released a ROM hack of that game without the slowdown that has come out recently, because it was a launch game for the Super Nintendo, and it was notorious for having a real bad slowdown. It kind of showcased the difference in processor speed between the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. And, going down the list of things, of course, we know the Super Nintendo technically was more powerful with its more color display. But in terms of processor speed, the Genesis crushed it. So shmups, like Gradius 3, didn't perform as well on the Super Nintendo. And that was, of course, Gradius 3 ended up having a lot of slowdown as a casualty of that fact.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned in our rapid fire thing that I thought it was actually a fairly easy game for being a Gradius game, and that probably factors into it too, because when you've got everything slowing down like that, it helps with your reaction time immensely. So,
especially since you use some other features that are in your review.
Yes, yeah,
that we won't get into.
No, we will not. But speaking of Nintendo hardware and that sort of thing, actually, we're kind of sticking with a little bit of a theme lately, because our last episode with Seamus from Grayman Games covered the OG Game Boy, the big gray brick. And I believe what we're talking about today is also related to that. So, Chris, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about a game related to what I'm playing currently, which is still Final Fantasy 15. Thank you for asking, Shane. And,
yeah, you're welcome. I figured it was only fair, since you steamrolled my shit last week, that we just don't talk about yours this time. So
at least I blasted yours. You just completely ignored me.
Yep. It's a cold shoulder. It's a silent treatment. It's the worst kind.
Total bitch move, Shane. At least I'm up and honest about my assholishness. But yeah, just briefly. Yeah, we'll get to what we're going to be talking about today. But let me self-indulge myself a little bit and just tell everyone I'm still playing Final Fantasy 15. So I guess that doesn't matter. Yeah, it's okay.
Well, look forward to Chris's rapid fire review on FF15. You can find other quality content like this.
Yeah. I kind of talked a lot about it last week, and I'm still kind of trying to play it because, of course, just trying to find the time in between all the other stuff I got going on right now. And I don't know. I sit down. I'm still addicted to it. And I'm still puzzled by a lot of the design choices and how they do things. But yeah, we'll leave it for the rapid fire review that I put out.
Yeah, I actually need to finish up the mobile edition of that I've been playing. I'm actually not 100% done with it yet. I'm pretty close to the end though, but I have it on my Switch.
Well, if it's anything like the main version, I know you're not playing it for the story. So when we get to this week's game, speaking of games without story, but it's more appropriate because it has gameplay. This week we are talking about Final Fantasy Adventure, or Seiken Densetsu. Yes, for the Nintendo Game Boy. If you've been watching our Sunday streams, anybody? Okay, if you've been watching our Sunday streams, you know
that's
that
the part where I insert
a
cricket sound.
Yes, we have been playing this game for a few of our episodes, and we hope to finish it because apparently you can get a long play done of this for 4 hours. But we'll get more to that later. But first, I'm going to be giving you a brief history of Final Fantasy Adventure. The introduction and popularity of the Game Boy meant that developers had a new platform for their developed franchises that didn't have to compete with their Famicom or NES releases. Many companies released portable, scaled-down clones of games on the NES. Some companies developed original titles using the basic formula of their parent franchises, Super Mario Land. And other companies, like Square, developed completely new IPs for the portable system, some of which would grow into the home with their own unique legacies. In 1989, Squaresoft would release their first Game Boy game called Makai Toshi Saga, which would be renamed the Final Fantasy Legend in North America, as Final Fantasy was really Square's only known RPG in the region, and it looked similar enough for association. The game would see enough success to allow development of a new game series, and ultimately lead Square to develop another new IP, Seiken Densetsu, or as we call it, the Mana series. Square would initially register and trademark the name Seiken Densetsu, translated as Legend of the Holy Sword, in 1989 for a Famicom Disk System project that was rumored to come in at 5 floppy disks. The project never materialized, but Square was able to hold on to the name. In 1990, Square would ask Koichi Ishii, who had worked on the first 2 Final Fantasy games, to develop a spin-off title of the mainline series. The title, initially called Geminites, would eventually pick up the name of the game canceled in 1989 and would release in Japan on June 28, 1991 as Seiken Densetsu Final Fantasy Gaiden. That's right, it's a quasi-official Final Fantasy game. This can be seen in the game's inclusion of Moogles, Chocobos, and character sprites that bore a striking resemblance to red and black mages. But that's about where the similarities to the mainline Final Fantasy series ends. Seiken Densetsu was a top-down RPG that played more like The Legend of Zelda than any Final Fantasy game. Most of the game is spent as a one-person effort, and when you did have a party, your companion would mostly be a brain-dead sprite who may or may not have something useful, maybe tears, that you could apply. Instead of being limited to a sword as your main attack like in Zelda, Seiken Densetsu gave players a variety of weapons that could have additional functions. You could equip axes that could cut down trees, or chains that would allow you to cross caverns, among other weapons that provided beneficial environmental effects. Other differences to both Zelda and Final Fantasy would be a basic customization and level up, and a charge meter that would allow you to perform a strong attack regardless of your health. Seiken Densetsu would release later in 1991 as Final Fantasy Adventure in North America, with a re-release in 1998, and as Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, not to be confused with the SNES game, in 1993 in Europe. The game would end up selling a total of 700,000 units worldwide, and spawn a successful legacy of games better known in North America as the Mana series, Secret of Mana, and has been recently released again in the Mana collection on the Nintendo Switch. And that is your brief history of Final Fantasy Adventure.
So thank you for the brief history of Final Fantasy Adventure, or Mystic Quest, depending on where you're at, or Seiken Densetsu.
Seiken.
Is it Seiken?
Seiken.
Seiken.
But that's going to be the last time we're going to say Seiken Densetsu. So
okay.
We'll just say Final Fantasy Adventure.
Seiken Densetsu. There we go.
Right?
Okay.
I have a little pet peeve when...
Yeah, I know he does.
Yeah.
He hates it when people mispronounce Japanese titles.
I mean, I could be mispronouncing it for all I fucking know. So if I am, feel free to just absolutely blast me on the internet. I'll take it. I'm a big boy.
So I guess I'll jump into my sort of experience with this one, which of course, if you've listened to the show at all, you probably know that this is a running theme for me at this point, that despite the fact that I am a host of a retro game podcast, turns out I haven't really played a lot of these back when they were relevant. A lot of them I kind of came to later. Which I suppose I will leave that up to your discretion, whether or not that disqualifies me as a retro host, but here we are. So similarly with FFA, I didn't play it at all until very recently. As a matter of fact, the aforementioned Stream Sundays that we have where I've been playing the game were my first exposure to it at all. And part of that was sort of just like symptomatic of not owning a Game Boy, as we mentioned in our last episode about the Game Boy, that I, weirdly enough, was a Sega Game Gear kid, much to my chagrin and the deaths of many AA batteries.
Is that the legacy and ghost of the Sega Master System that just continues to haunt you?
I think it is. That might be what it is. I started my console life with a Master System, and then the Game Gear came along to continue it, to continue my abject disappointment.
I mean, because that is essentially a portable Master System.
Yeah, pretty much. Maybe that's the reason why my parents bought me that instead of a Game Boy. I don't know. I don't really remember asking for it. But anyway, yeah. But anyway, so I didn't really play this from the off, but kind of got a chance to experience it more recently, and by and large, I've actually been enjoying it. It's been a longer experience than I expected it to be. I'll be honest. For a Game Boy title, a portable game system of that time in particular, it's actually a fairly lengthy game, or at least more than I was expecting. Of course, now like 3DS games, those are basically full blown console titles, and can take just as long. But back in the day, it was a different story. If you've watched any of our VODs of our playthrough of this, I think on at least 2 or 3 occasions, I've said at the beginning of them, like, yeah, so I think we're going to wrap this game up this time. And then it definitely didn't happen. So, but yeah, so that's kind of where I came into this. Was this something that you had a chance to play with, I think you said it was your dad's Game Boy, right? You mentioned that a couple of times. Was this something that he had, or did you come to this later?
Later. So I didn't get it right at the get. I did play it on the Game Boy back in the day, of course, not recently. And I think it was after I got the Game Boy Pocket. It may have been, I know I played it, I can't remember if I played it before or after Pokemon, because Pokemon, like many other people, really got regenerated interest in the Game Boy after Pokemon.
Sure.
But I can't remember if it was before or after. But it was different. It certainly wasn't what a lot of people were expecting. You go into this experience, you see Final Fantasy Adventure, and you're going to think you're going to get a turn-based RPG. And didn't get that experience right off the bat, but what is delivered was a quality RPG. Well, not RPG, but, action RPG, top-down action-adventure game.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, it's definitely something more than what you would probably expect in 1991 as an action RPG. I mean, in the totality of things, you look at, like, Link's Awakening, and Link's Awakening is certainly a much more robust experience, and I would, I'm not even going to hesitate to argue that Link's Awakening is a much better game. It is. But
yeah, it is.
Considering that this came out 2 full years before Link's Awakening, it's a very, very good effort to deliver, I don't know, an SNES-style action RPG on the Game Boy. Which you just didn't have a lot of on the Game Boy in general, and to deliver that in a lengthy sequence. And I think its legacy is really understated. I think a lot of people love Secret of Mana. They get really hyped up when they hear the title Secret of Mana and how great it was. But a lot of people for a very long time didn't understand that its origin was Final Fantasy Adventure, and even less people played it. Well, probably more people played it than knew it, but it didn't probably connect for a very long time. And I do find it interesting you said, like, you didn't see that RPGs back then, but Square did a really good job with maintaining length. I know I'm kind of getting off on a slight tangent here, but like the Final Fantasy Legends series were long, fully fleshed out RPGs, no matter how you feel about them. So Final Fantasy Adventure delivering that full console experience, for Square at least, was nothing totally outside the norm. But no one would blame you for thinking that you were going to get your 15, 20-minute Game Boy experience that you would be getting out of Contra or Super Mario Land. You were getting an actual game that you could sit down and you could definitely get your $30, $40 worth, whatever people were paying for this game brand new back in 1991.
Yeah, and so your point about like the Mana series, that was something that I was definitely not aware of. I had no idea that this was technically the first game in that series. And weirdly enough, some of the re-releases of this game, because it has been re-released a number of times on different platforms, from like the GBA, which was sort of Mana. So at least at that point, right, they sort of like put everything together. So it made sense.
Well, to be fair, Sword of Mana, I mean, these are remakes.
Right.
They're not re-releases. So if you're thinking Sword of Mana was a remake of Final Fantasy Adventure, if you don't think that's a remake of Final Fantasy Adventure, I think you could be easily forgiven for that. Unless
Well, so that's where I was going with it.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I was going with that actually and I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the GBA version of this, the Sword of Mana, where they kind of ripped out all of the like Final Fantasy related stuff and replaced it with things that were more consistent with like the Mana series. Is that right?
I know they did that in a lot of the remakes, yeah. Because, I mean, you could fight and kill chocobos in the original version. Mm-hmm. And, of course, you got to understand why Square wouldn't want that, especially since the Mana series had established itself later in games. I don't know whether or not you could get impacted with the Moogle status effect. I'm not sure if that maintained in there. But you can understand, like, Square's like, okay, we just want Rabbites and all the other things that you kill in the Mana series. I can only think of Rabbites off the top of my head. And forgive me because, I've played the Mana games. But, like, Rabbites are the most identifiable. So, like, you're thinking Rabbites and all the other Mana series enemies are in there. Why are we killing chocobos or turning people into Moogles? Those are Final Fantasy aspects. So, sure. Yeah, I could completely understand where they're coming from. It had established itself, its own legacy, its own enemies, its own gameplay system, much independently from Final Fantasy, even though it started out as a Final Fantasy side game.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I didn't have any idea what to expect going into this. I mean, just by virtue of having the Final Fantasy moniker on the box art of this thing, my assumption, as you had mentioned earlier, was that it was going to be a more traditional, party-based, turn-based sort of RPG. And as much as I think at this point I have made it fairly clear that I am, in fact, a fan of turn-based RPGs, I was actually pleasantly surprised to find that this was a different take on things, because I also very much enjoy action RPGs, whether that's like Zelda, or you can go into like the Diablo series. Of course, that's sort of an integral part of my gaming history. So I was happy to find that it was a different experience, and in a lot of ways very streamlined. You still have some of those light RPG elements like leveling up and stats, and you do actually have to apply, the points to your stats manually.
And Amanda.
Yes. And applying Amanda is 100% manual. Let me tell you. So you still have to do that. And of course you get like, you get equipment upgrades and things like that, but they're all fairly linear. Like you don't really have a whole lot of choices as to the kind of like gear you equip. It's most of the time it's fairly straightforward. Like, oh, this gold armor is better than the iron armor I have now. And so you just buy the whole set and upgrade. There's a few instances in the game where certain weapons are actually like either required or are like, super effective against certain enemies or bosses. And that, unless you had some sort of prior knowledge thanks to a game fac or something, would probably be a little bit of trial and error.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like equipment wise, it's essentially par for the course. Because you did see that, I mean, outside the weapons, I think that's the cool thing about this game too, is I can't really think of another game. I haven't extensively played Crystallis to know any better, because I know that was another big action RPG at the time. For the for the NES. Sorry. Made by SNK. So, and I know a lot of people like that. And Govelius 2 for the Master System was another action RPG. I think you can only use swords in that. But just in case I'm wrong, I'm throwing those games out. I know they exist. Thank you. But like Final Fantasy Adventure did bring that aspect to the action RPG or console action RPG, even though it's the Game Boy, it's a portable console. But like the more traditional console-based kind of action RPG where you weren't limited to one weapon type, and each weapon had a different function. And I think that's even different from like Zelda, and it separates itself from Zelda in that aspect, where Zelda has like, you have your hook shot and all these subsidiary weapons that perform those functions. But in Final Fantasy Adventure, those subsidiary weapons actually function as your main weapon and just provide additional functions in addition to being a killing machine. So that's something unique, and that I think that's something to be appreciated within the series.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say on some level, I think that actually you could argue that is kind of an improvement, right? Because I think it's a smart way of kind of streamlining that system to where, actually your example is a perfect one with the hook shot, because you do have a sickle at one point in the game that also kind of functions exactly like a hook shot, and you use it that way on several occasions to traverse certain areas in the game. But you do that 100% with your equipped weapon rather than having this like tertiary like item clogging up your inventory. So I think that was smart. One criticism that I will say kind of related to that, I think, at least for me, was the menu navigation, because there really wasn't a good way to quickly swap between available weapons. So because of the fact that you are required at several points in the game to use a specific weapon for a specific purpose, there ends up being a whole lot of sort of like flipping through menus to re-equip weapons over and over again. So it would have been nice if there had been a way. I'm not sure how you do that with a Game Boy, considering the very limited, button availability. It's not like you had shoulder buttons at that time. So I don't know if there would have been a good way to accomplish that, but that would have been nice.
You also have to think, I mean, this is kind of in the transitional phase in between the NES and the SNES, right?
Sure.
And NES games, like menu navigation was still in its primacy. They were still kind of figuring it out. I mean, you essentially had two buttons and a D-pad that people were really working with, and with the start and select buttons being limited in their application. So when you think about menu navigation, menu navigation is shit. There's a lot of Genesis games where menu navigation is shit. And even SNES games, early SNES games, menu navigation is shit. Final Fantasy IV is not one of them. But it's a prevalent criticism of a lot of RPGs of the time. I mean, shit, go back and try to play fucking Dragon Warrior on the NES, or the Dragon Warrior 2 or Dragon Warrior 3, or just fucking Dragon Quest anything prior to like Dragon Quest 5 or 6. It's a fucking pain in the ass. They just didn't understand how to do things. It was mostly based off, I think, like Wizardry and Ultima, where everything was very cumbersome and no one could get out of their own way at the time. They just couldn't fucking figure it out. So yeah, Final Fantasy Adventure suffers from a lot of that shit, but that's just what RPGs were doing at the time. They hadn't streamlined things quite yet. Is it a fair criticism against the game? Absolutely. But I think you have to realize that was just a product of the time, and it's just one of those archaic things that happen when you go back and you play older RPGs. It's just something you have to deal with.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I mean, it's sort of a natural evolution from, you could go as far back as things like Zork or something, where you're 100% text-based sort of games like that, where that's quite possibly literally the clunkiest way to play a game. Although it is a little bit of a novelty now, I guess. But it's this natural evolution of typing commands in order to interact with a game to then being able to control it with something like a D-pad and have an actual character and moving through there. So yeah, I mean, this game came out at a time where it was at a point in that sort of RPG evolution where you're sort of straddling the line between very text and menu heavy interaction and also having the ability to have, more interactive graphics, I guess. So no, I totally get where you're coming from. And it's not something that I'm knocking this particular game for, because it is just sort of endemic of a lot of things in that particular time period. But for the record, it doesn't make it any less frustrating.
Other characteristics that this game had in the North American version, at least, and include probably all versions, is one, the plot. I mean, you have to talk about Game Boy. One, the plot's super basic, which is fine. The other thing is, if we have alluded to from our Apply Amanda comments, is the translation is shit. So let's get that out of the way.
That's one of the things that got pointed out a number of times in the reviews for it too, is that it's a pretty solid RPG, but it suffers from some serious translation problems.
So if anyone doesn't know, okay, so I'm just going to explain Apply Amanda, okay? And you can watch
please do.
And you can watch the video where we do our live stream, because I'm sticking with this because I find it absolutely hilarious. I love it. And that's going to be the theme for this thing. So you have a party member or a joining party member with you, because you have no control over them other than some weird things. But her name's Amanda, and you go and you fight, what was it, Medusa? and you fight Medusa,
Mhm.
and Medusa turns Amanda into a fiend, and so you have to kill Amanda. But you need to get something from Amanda in order to heal someone else. So once Amanda turns into a fiend, you have to kill Amanda, and you take Amanda's tears, and you have to give it to the NPC in order to cure the NPC of whatever their malady is, right? So when you get this item, it just says Amanda. It doesn't say Amanda's tears. It doesn't say tears. It doesn't say anything. It just says Amanda. So you go talk to the NPC, and instead of it saying, applied tears or cured whatever their malady, it says, you have applied Amanda. And it's kind of creepy when you really think about it. And it's hilarious.
Smear these tears all over this
I'm just going to smear Amanda all over your face.
Yep.
And that could be taken multiple ways. How are you applying Amanda to your face?
Directly to the
forehead to your mouth. Where are you applying Amanda to? Is it pleasurable?
Everywhere.
Hopefully it doesn't even say if it's tears or if it's a corpse. So you can really go in some very, very dark directions. I wouldn't encourage you to do so. And you might be very upset with what I'm saying right now, but think about it. That's creepy.
Do we need to explain the whole apply directly to forehead thing? Are we old enough now that some people listening to this are not going to know what that's from?
I might not know what that is.
Oh, okay. Cool. So it's just me. Fantastic. So for those of you that don't know, several years ago on television, there was a commercial for a product that was total garbage and didn't actually work, by the way, but was called Head On. And
it was
basically like a giant chapstick that you rolled on your forehead under the auspices of it was supposed to provide fast headache relief. From what I recall, I think, like I said, it was basically snake oil and it didn't actually work at all the way it was supposed to. But those commercials, that was their tagline that I can't get out of the back of my brain until the day I die now, which was Head On, apply directly to the forehead. Head On, apply directly to the forehead. And so that's where that comes from. So there's your mid-90s history lesson, boys and girls.
Yeah, I think, I didn't get those commercials in regular society. It must be a Canadian thing.
Yeah, no, that's what it is, definitely.
If you're listening to this and you're in Canada, please let us know if that's a thing. And maybe it was just where I lived. I don't remember that.
All right,
I was just making sexual.
There has to be at least someone listening to this that knows about head-on commercials, but
I mean, I was just trying to make normal, innocent, necrophilic comments, and you have to go and provide something about getting head from chapstick. Bastard.
Not that I think chapstick has a problem with sales or anything, but that could probably provide a boost. Just saying. Right. So in any event, chapstick things aside, there was two other things that I kind of wanted to touch on real quick here before we start to kind of wrap things up for this episode.
Right.
One, the map is fucking awful. Right. So it's probably the most useless map in any sort of game I think I've seen in a long time.
Worse than Zelda's?
Yes.
No.
Of course.
No.
Yes. Worse than Zelda. Or at least on par with Zelda. Okay, so the map in this game is essentially just a collection of rectangles arranged vaguely in a way that represents a map. There's nothing on there that really helps navigate whatsoever. And honestly, my play time with this game would probably be twice as long if I wasn't following along with a walkthrough, because the directions that NPCs give you to sort of move the main plot along are, something to the effect of like, you need to go to this forest over in the east. And you're like, okay, great. My first thing would be to look at the map, right? And be like, all right, so whereabouts do I need to go? And I'm not expecting a Game Boy RPG from like 1991 to, be giving me quest markers or holding my hand or anything, because I know better than that. But like, damn, this map might as well just not be there. The Overland map is literally just a grid, and there's like a few things on the map that sort of give you an idea of where things might be, as far as like geographical traits. But outside of that, there's nothing. And then the dungeon maps are actually the same as Zelda, where it is just a bunch of little rectangles, like sort of situated in the way that the dungeon is laid out. But by and large, the map sucks.
With no Nazi signs.
Yeah, no hidden symbols in there, at least as far as I'm aware. Luckily, this was something that I think that they realized, because the map was actually fixed in the later sort of like revisions of this game, you know, coming out on like GBA and Vita and what have you.
But not with The Legend of Zelda.
But no, not with The Legend of Zelda. They decided to keep
none of those re-releases.
Experience pure, I guess. Are you trying to tell me that like this is better than Zelda? Is this where you're driving with this?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? I don't care. Final Fantasy Adventure is better than the original Legend of Zelda, and not even by a little bit.
Oh, well, I wouldn't argue that at all. I actually don't really like the original Zelda at all.
Okay. I'm just saying, like, you're going off on the map, and the criticisms are valid, but at least the map shows you where the fucking towns are. What is the original Legend of Zelda?
That's like literally the only thing on the overworld map, though, is like the towns. Yes.
What does the original Legend of Zelda give you?
Squares or
squares,
rectangles maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, I can't even. I know Govelius and Crystallis exist, and I don't know what their fucking maps look like. I'm sorry. I wish I had those for comparison, and I can't think of any other action RPG on the Game Boy for comparison that may have come out before Final Fantasy Adventure, because I can't think of it right now. So crucify me, please, if I'm fucked up. But Final Fantasy Adventure's map is much better than the Legend of Zelda's map, because at least it has fucking towns on it.
Yep, but it still sucks.
Guess what's also better in Final Fantasy Adventure, even though it still sucks? The translation. So at least you can talk to people, and they let you know generally what you're supposed to do, instead of telling you it's dangerous to go alone. Yeah, no shit, asshole. I know it's dangerous to go alone. At least I don't have to go alone in Final Fantasy Adventure. I get Amanda and her fucking dead-ass tears. So, it's great. Okay, whatever. But it's better than The Legend of Zelda. That has to be said. It is a better action RPG than The Legend of Zelda, and it probably came out slightly before, I can't even fucking the name. I'm a terrible fucking retro gamer right now. The Super Nintendo Zelda game.
Link to the Past?
Link to the Past, yes.
Yeah.
It's not better than that. No. No. But it's not better than Link's Awakening, I already said that. But it did come out before it. So when you really think about it, this is probably, when it came out, top 5 action RPG of all time.
Do you feel better now? I feel like you needed to get that out.
Look, the original Legend of Zelda is shit. It sucks. And I'm going to piss off a lot of people saying that. I don't care. It sucks. If I give you the game and I take away your fucking FAQ and you can't use the internet, solve the game. Solve it. You get no map. You get no instruction manual. Here's the game. Here's the Nintendo. Here's the controller. And play it.
See, all you need for that is just a handy dandy piece of grid paper and a pencil, and then you can draw your own map as you go along. It's an adventure.
Yeah, but like you still need to know where to put bombs and shit. Which in Final Fantasy Adventure, when you blow holes in walls with your medics,
when you blow hose,
blow hose. When you
we up in FFA, we be blowing hose.
When you create holes in walls in FFA with your medic.
Yeah,
with the Matuk.
The Matuk.
What's the item that you can use that you can... And it doesn't matter. But when you do that, it's at least like in dungeons, and they're easy to find. They're in like 1 of 4 locations. And like the original Legend of Zelda...
it's also easy to find too, because you just need to walk up to the wall and swing your weapon, and it makes a different noise if it's something you can blow up.
Oh, something A Link to the Past did, like right after that.
Oh, imagine that.
Yeah. But The Legend of Zelda didn't do that. So if you have no idea you can blow shit up or light things on fire or do any of the things you need to do in order to beat the fucking game, you would need something to tell you to do that, for the most part, in a lot of situations.
Are you going to be okay? I didn't realize that Legend of Zelda hurt you this badly.
We need to do an episode on Legend of Zelda.
It sounds that way, yeah. We will lose all of our subscribers, and it will be amazing.
Don't worry, we don't hate the other ones. Just that one.
Yeah, no, just the first one. I've tried to get into that one several times, and I can never do it because it's just so fucking obtuse. But anyway, Zelda aside, the other thing that I wanted to mention, really, and this is not surprising, probably coming from both an RPG of the time and also a Final Fantasy related game, is that I realized that I probably would have benefited from grinding more. And by more, I mean at all, because I didn't.
More time on Grinder got you.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
But I didn't do any level grinding at all in my playthrough so far, and it became like very evident that I probably should have, because later on in the playthrough, I realized that I was actually like horrendously underleveled for the things that I was taking on. And granted, part of that might be actually, as we're, spent the last like 10 minutes griping about a shitty map. Part of that could have been because I didn't do really any wandering around, because I was following a walkthrough, so I knew exactly where I needed to go. So
maybe the shitty map was part of the game design.
Well, actually, yeah, probably in some way. I think that and that's what I'm getting at, is that I think they expected people to sort of wander around to find where they needed to go next. And as a byproduct of that, end up in like way more battles and consequently gain more levels than I did. Because yeah, I was definitely not statistically prepared for some of the stuff that I ran into like later in the game. So that's kind of weird, but
speaking of level
so
up,
that's all I really had to say
on
on it. Did you have any specific things that you kind of wanted to talk about other than the fact that it's like objectively better than
I just want to say
The Legend of Zelda?
I just want to say, like, speaking of level up,
yeah,
like it's I like the way that you do the level up system in this game, where you get to select what you want to level up. It's not just automatic, like level up, and you just get randomized stats. You get to choose what you want to level up, which a lot of games back then, you didn't get that option.
Yeah, so I mean, I liked the system because I do like having the ability to choose like where you put your points, but I also felt on some level that it was somewhat inconsequential. Like, obviously it made an impact on the gameplay, but there was I'm gonna be honest, there was no rhyme or reason to how I allocated my stat points, other than like, I don't know, I think I need more strength, so I do more of the damages, and also maybe I'll throw some points into my intellect abilities, whatever it was called, that I don't remember off the top of my head right now, so that I can be a little bit more effective with these magic spells they're giving me. But there really was no strategy to it, and it seemed like it didn't make a huge difference. So I guess you could argue one way or the other whether that's actually like a benefit or not, because I guess maybe at least that way you couldn't totally fuck yourself by building your character a certain way. I mean, unless you were insane and just like put everything into one stat.
I'm sure that people did that, like just put into strength. And I don't know, like I know in the later versions, like with Seiken Densetsu 3 or Trials of Mana, that like it would cap you out if you put too many attributes into one stat. So I don't know if it did that in this game. I know it did that in later releases, but I don't know if it did that here. So to maintain the balance. But in any case, it's an enjoyable system. You can customize, and it's all about just building up your charge bar anyway. Just making sure you can unleash sick attacks. But that's about it.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I love the charge bar.
So yeah. Do you really love the charge bar, or are you just looking at things on the screen and saying that you love them?
I love charge bar.
Oh, okay, fine. You love charge bar. So Chris, would you say that in this day and age, you recommend someone picking this up and playing it now?
For nostalgia purposes only, if you like old Game Boy games, yeah. If you like retro games, sure. Which, if you're listening to this, you probably do. So I'm going to say yes. Yes, it's worth picking up and giving it a shot. It's a fun little game. It's not overly complicated, and it's better than a mobile game. And I think you'll have a decent time. So I would say it's go for it.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page about this one. being someone that did come to it now and didn't have any sort of nostalgia for it whatsoever, I've enjoyed my time with it. It's not incredibly complex to where you need to go look up, strategies on how to build your party or where to find that super hidden Ultima weapon or that thing that you missed that you can't get now or any of that bullshit. It's fairly straightforward, and the gameplay is enjoyable. The plot is just kind of there, but it's serviceable. Prepare to have your character be thrown over a waterfall like 3 times, I think.
Prepare to die.
Yeah, because apparently that's the way that the villains in this game think that they can kill you.
And get good.
Even if it didn't work the first 2 times, but that's fine. But yeah, I would definitely recommend picking it up if you can. If you're into action RPGs or retro games like this, then for sure, I think it's worth the 4 to 6 hours or so that it'll probably take to get through it.
Yeah, it's about 4 to 6 hours. It's a good deal.
So I guess with that, we'll probably wrap things up for this time around.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so as we are wont to do, we should mention that if you want to get in touch with us on the social media, you can do that. We are pretty much everywhere that you could look. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter are the main venues. And if you want to check out our Patreon, as we mentioned earlier, where we've got some of our exclusive bonus audio content that's there, feel free to head on over to bit.ly/rhpatron. And if you donate at minimum the 16-bit tier, that will give you access to our additional super secret RSS feed of our additional audio content. And if you are also interested in some swag, then you can do that. We have a merch store. We've got a couple of different things on there now, including our summer Outrunner series of items. And the storefront that we run it on pretty much always has a discount of some kind going. So you can get a pretty good deal on that stuff. And you can find that by heading over to bit.ly/RHP merch. And also, as an added benefit of being a patron, you get a personal shout out at the end of every one of our episodes. And so with that, Chris, you wanna do our patron shout outs this time?
Thank you, Ashton Ruby. You're the man. And thank you, Lyle. Please give me his last name, Shane. Is it McKearns? I think it's McKearns.
So it is. I'm hoping. I hope, Lyle, if you're listening to this, I hope it's okay that we put your last name out there because we didn't specify. But yes,
we will verify that in post.
Yes, Lyle McKearns and Ashton Ruby are our 2 very supportive patrons. So thank you for being there with us along the way and coming and berating us on our Sunday streams. It's always appreciated.
And the beratement will return. I think this post section will give us a public platform to berate you. So we will remember everything you say on our streams from now on because we have to give you a shout out. And
yeah,
I enjoy that. I love giving you a shout out because now I'm going to return the favor.
Yeah, speaking of which, yes, in that case, thank you, Lyle, for making me play Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the Game Boy. That was a thing.
We all got side boob.
We sure did. That game, by the way, candidate for, actually, I'm probably gonna do a rapid fire review on that at some point, just because.
Please do.
If for nothing other than a candidate for best pause screen of a video game of all time.
I love it. Oh, by the way, if you're in the local Jacksonville area, we will be at GAM on August 17th, walking around, being creepy in our retro Hangover shirts. Shane may or may not dress like Fox McCloud because he is low-key furry. I can't promise you that he will, but he might. I don't know. He probably won't, or he probably will. You'll find out. If you go to GAM
just head over
in
to
Jacksonville, Florida,
do a barrel
on
roll.
August 17th. Yes, we'll be there on August 17th. Plus, our next episode will have a local big-time community figure from the Jacksonville area. We look forward to seeing you on that episode. Oh, and we have one more announcement. We will be on someone else's channel, and we'll put that on social media when it becomes official and when that comes out. He's one of our previous guest hosts. We will be on the Ultimate Nerd something. I don't know if the Ultimate Nerd podcast or Nerd Trainer's other podcast.
I don't know. We're going to be on some shit. I don't know.
But I don't know exactly what channel we're going to be on from Nerd Trainer or Ryan Trainer that we had as a guest a couple weeks ago. But we will be on one of his channels. So please pay attention to Ryan Trainer's Nerd Podcast Network that he promoted in his previous episode. So please pay attention to that because we will be on there as well.
All right. Well, lots of good stuff happening in the RHP world.
Including rambling.
Yes, including rambling. So, with all of that said, until next time.
Jiggle your rambling joysticks.